Hello, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube Live. Good afternoon. Another working lunch with Liam. I don't know how many times we're going to keep continuing with this. We don't know how long, if we're ever going to come out of lockdown, but we're certainly going to carry on for a few more weeks as yet. We have some great guests lined up. We've had some great guests already. You know, if this is the first time that you've seen one of these videos, it's about spreading a bit of love, spreading a bit of joy, learning about somebody's business, how they got into it, how they are surviving and thriving through lockdown and all these difficult circumstances. And today's guest is somebody not from the Northwest, but certainly is a great business person, had a great and fantastic idea, and is hopefully bringing it to a new market. Well, they were introduced to me by a mutual friend in Tony. So let's get him on now. Welcome to Greg. Greg, good afternoon. Welcome to my LinkedIn Live.
Good afternoon, Liam, and thank you for inviting me. Hi.
No, it's all right. No issues. First question I always ask every guest: where are you and what can you see?
Okay, well, I'm down in Stroud in Gloucestershire, the middle of the Cotswolds. We're down in a valley. So Stroud is a town of 5 valleys, and they all converge in the town. And we're famed, or our wealth is made out of wool. So there were sheep on the hills, and the rivers are powering the mills, and that's what's created the sort of wealth in this area. And I'm, you know, everywhere you look, you're in the bottom of a valley. So I could see the hillsides out my window.
Also, are you originally, what do they call them down there, Strouder or what?
No. I've been pretty itinerant. My ancestors are all from Manchester. My parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents were all Mancunians. And then the 60s, they dispersed. Some of them went off to Australia, not in chains, I don't think. But we ended up traveling around the world, and I settled in Stroud now 18 years ago with the birth of my first daughter. And I feel pretty rooted, finally.
Yeah. Is that something that interests you about your family history? You know, have you gone back further than the 60s?
Not at all, actually. My parents sort of traveled around. My dad was a civil engineer, and actually we got pretty disconnected from family as a result of that. But sort of moving back to Stroud, I could see that, you know, it's something I've really missed. And certainly now I have a little more interest. You know, we're getting older. I do have that interest, but no, it's never been something that I've pursued.
So, in terms of let's go right back to the beginning. You know, you're now in this fantastic business, so we're going to come on to that in a second. But where did it all start for you? You know, did you come out of college or university thinking, I want to be in this industry, I want to be a business owner? What's the history right up to today?
Sure. Well, I've already touched on it to an extent. My dad and my parents were expatriates. He was an engineer. We traveled around the world. And as a kid, you know, socializing around a barbecue with a beer was norm. You know, that was it. So I already had an interest in the, you know, the social element. I went to university in Wales, Swansea, and I did a degree in marine biology. I did an ecology degree. But that's when I started home brewing, you know, just brew some beer that was fit to drink, you know, that's cheap. After university, I paid off my uni debt working on a farm. And I had the good fortune of living in a little cottage in the middle of nowhere, which was perfect for parties. Yeah. So I picked up my interest in home brewing again, but from the raw materials. And that's when I really got, you know, some great results. I actually then started traveling myself for a while. And then when I got back to the UK, I picked it up at a time when I was also working with a company, a charity called the Soil Association. Okay. And you might have heard of them. They promote organic food and farming, and you'll know them from the certification that you have in organic food. And I worked in their local food team. So my work was promoting community scale local food enterprises. And when I arrived in Stroud, combining my interest in small scale enterprise, connecting people with where their food came from, organic production, and my interest in beer. One day, weeding a carrot field on a volunteer day on a local farm with a fellow beer enthusiast, we said, you know, wouldn't it be great if Stroud had its own brewery? And I was possessed from that moment onwards. We had to have a brewery. And certainly, yes, my life has been devoted to this business since.
What is it that then? Was it you saying it was a social element to how sharing a beer with somebody, brings people together? Is that's quite an attractive thing for you then?
Absolutely, it's fundamentally the thing that's about. Sure, I love making a beer that is a great product, and it's really satisfying to see people enjoying something you've made, whatever it is. That's really enjoying. But when I look at the team here, what is the common thing that we all like? And that is drinking beer with other people. That's why we get out of bed. It's not just to make the beer, it's actually drinking with other people. And that is really fundamentally what we're about. So, of course, the current global circumstances is just so devastating to that. And I think we are all fundamentally missing that connection with other people. And I think it's probably leaving quite deep scars that we don't really quite realize yet.
Well, we of course, yeah. I mean, we're going to absolutely come on to the last 6 months in terms of how it's affected your business and what you think the future is. So your business now, you've got a variety of lines of beer and things like that. Just talk through kind of what your products are, if you don't mind.
Sure. So the crucial difference about us is that we're an organic brewery. So in the UK, there's probably about 2,500 breweries. About 5 of them are dedicated to making only organic beer, so a really tiny fraction. There's more breweries that do organic beers, but they're a token gesture to the market, because there is a market. There are people that are interested. So that's fundamentally one of our differences. Then we set up now 15 years ago, and our core market is local pubs, Cotswold pubs. So our history is in cask beer, traditional cask beers, a range of cask beers. But as tastes and interests have moved on, and as inquisitive brewers, of course, our range has grown to adapt as well. So we now do a range of craft style beers, what we call craft, so hoppy keg beers. And we sell as much of those as we do our cask beer, and especially through our own bar. We moved recently to a new building, which is a massive place, and about 15% of all the beer we make, we were selling through our own bar. About 1,500 pints a weekend to a really buzzing bar. And again, the importance of that was we do a lot of community events. We had parish council meetings and local clubs and all sorts of things that happen here. So a range of beers, but all drunk in a social setting. And of course, championing the pub again. Those are our customers, but we want to see people drinking beer in the pub, and that would be what we'd ultimately like to see. So really devastating time for us.
Of course. I mean, the last question before we kind of move on to how you've adapted to that. But forgive my ignorance, but what makes a beer organic? Is it how the crops are grown, or honestly, speak to somebody who's an idiot.
Sure. Well, fundamentally, it is about the ingredients. It's the raw materials. So the core main ingredients in a beer are barley and hops. And they've been grown on farms where they don't use artificial fertilizer, they don't use chemical pesticides or herbicides. So that is the fundamental difference. There is also some standards around packaging and also welfare. So, organic standards have the highest level of animal welfare. Not that there's any animals involved in growing barley and hops, but the standards include that. In terms of packaging, it's around things like not having PCBs on the line of your crown cap, which are they're hormone mimicking chemicals that you find in all sorts of packaged products that wouldn't be allowed. Even things like welfare of staff, pay conditions do appear to some level in the organic standards. So the standards are fundamentally about the raw materials, but they're slightly more encompassing. And really, we found them not only to meet our ethos around sustainable farming, but it's also a good benchmark for a quality product. These are quality ingredients, and the standards are good for a quality product.
Brilliant. Right, so you've got a great product. You're selling 500 pints a weekend. In February, everything's looking beautiful. You're thinking, right, here we go. Great year. We're going to have loads of sunshine, get people in the bar. Let's get expanded. You may even still be doing that. But then, of course, the middle of March comes. Tell us what your first reaction was. And then, did you go through what they call is it the Kubler-Ross effect, where you go through anger, dismay, and then, you think everything's going to be all right. So tell us about your first reactions.
Well, nobody saw that coming. We had news sort of in the distance, there's rumblings, but we always thought, well, that's never going to affect us. But sure, when 40th of March lockdown, it was pretty devastating. 70% of our business was, through our bar and our pub customers, and that just shut off overnight. So, of course, complete dismay and terror at the prospects of that. However, it quickly, I think, we saw it right across the industry. We are a resilient species and very quick to adapt. And so, very soon we were seeing pubs transform themselves into corner shops. People didn't want to crowd into busy supermarkets. They were trying to dilute their shopping, to where they could. So all the independent shops, the village shops, the little community shops that we normally supply, we saw our sales going up through that. We did, being a cask beer producer, we had a lot of stock ready to go to pubs. So we already sell beer in bag-in-boxes, your takeouts. Immediately we started promoting that as an offer, a bag-in-box to, at that time for delivery only. We had a couple of drivers who, with their vans, who couldn't do their usual sort of home removals or home maintenance, and quickly stepped in. Overnight we can do home deliveries, and we started selling directly to the public. Remarkably, the sales stayed fairly steady. People still drank our beer, but just had to get it in a different way, and that was a real testimony to the local loyalty, the sort of customer base that we already have. They were keen to seek out our products, and in April we certainly saw panic buying of beer, which was a great relief.
How was the last 6 months? We speak to a lot of businesses both on this call and separating kind of my business. And it's given them a period of reflection. It's given them a period to restructure and actually refocus on what they want to achieve in next period of time. Has it given you the same sense of focusing on really what you want out of the business, or is it the same goal?
Well, interestingly, sorry.
You can take it, Greg. Don't you worry. We're amongst friends.
No, it's just giving me some feedback through the phone mic, which is next to the speaker. That's been picked up. So you might say that we've completely changed our model as a result of it. And certainly there are things that are going to change. But fundamentally, as a business, we've always had an eye on the need for change globally in our practices as a species. We've been thriving at the cost of planet and at the cost of other people. There's a real divide between those that have and those that don't. And that, as an ecologist, university 40 years ago, we were already talking about these concepts, but we've seen very little action over the years. And we're still pretty indifferent. We hear about a suffering economy, which certainly we do, and that's a real concern. But still, the fix to the problem is let's get back to business as usual as fast as we can, build stuff, make stuff, sell stuff, and revitalize the economy. But these are also the root causes of our problems of overpopulation and intensified food production and the things that have caused these issues. So for us, always with a fairly optimistic outlook. Again, this has presented an opportunity to really focus on what matters. And there's a lot of hope in what we see. People have really taken stock and looked at what really matters to themselves in their own lives. Family, work, health as one of the most important things that we can have, despite everything, is our own good health. If we're healthy, that's fundamentally what matters. So people are looking at what we eat. And getting time outside, these things. So that very much falls into our priorities as a brand. Why are we producing organic beer? Because we think it's the right thing for our planet. It's not pilfering land at the cost of the product, and also what we put into our bodies. We don't want to be feeding ourselves with poor quality food. So in those terms, it is very much part of our ethos.
Brilliant.
In terms of our day-to-day practice, again, we have an ambition to sell more beer, for sure. We've just moved into a big building, and what we'd like to see is that as a business that is trying to do good, and I can tell you a bit more about that. We hope that people, consumers, sort of enforce the power that they do have. So we're fairly disempowered, politically. We don't feel that we have much influence in the world. But one of the biggest influences that we do have is where we spend our money. We can choose where we spend our money, and that has huge power. So what I would like to appeal to our customers and everybody is really think about where you're putting money, and is it creating positive change? And we're a brand that, if you buy our beer, that you're supporting wildlife and biodiversity and good things, and hopefully that will see the world change, into the future. That's our hope.
You touched on it a little bit earlier about I can't remember the exact phrase that you used, but I took from the deep wounds that actually the last 6 months may cause, in that the pub or going to a bar or going to a restaurant is we're social animals, and actually by not being able to do that for quite a few months is good, not in terms of as health, but also mental health with people is going to be really effective going forward. So and that's something that we all must think of, and how do you reflect on that?
Yeah, that is really difficult, and of course that's not going to be addressed until we can get back together again. A Zoom call or a virtual meeting really is not quite the same as huddling together with your mates and having a good hug. So I don't know how we're going to I don't know what the results of that are going to be. Certainly we just got to bide our time, but I think recognizing that people will be suffering as a result of it. People are isolated. We need to look out for people, and again, it just reinforces the importance of family and the people that you are close to. We've got some noise going on. I don't know.
It's all right. My phone's always ringing, so don't worry about it.
Well, we've got a disused canal outside our premises. And they're tapping in the edges with a little hammer, and it's making a bit of racket. I'll just open the window.
That's all right. Tell them off, Greg. Let's go back a little bit further, if you don't mind. Your passion was being social. Your passion was brewing an organic beer and all the other things that come along with it. But of course, at some stage, you eventually landed yourself as a business owner, and so talked about how you coped with that in the early days, and then how your management style changed. Have you always kept the same management style? How do you operate as a business owner?
Well, I never realised how much I would enjoy running my own business, despite the real stresses and challenges that it brings. I think one of the things that has allowed me to succeed actually is that I actually am quite good at letting things go. We all do things our own way. I'm quite happy to give up responsibility. And one of the things that I get most pleasure of now is seeing a business that pretty much has a life of its own. You know, things happen around me that I've never been part of, and I go, wow, you know, that's great to see that happening. There's an event happening or something new going on, and that's a real pleasure to see that, you know, there's an organism with a life of its own, and a team of people that have autonomy, who are really bright, they're passionate, they're engaged with what we want to do, they want to see good product, they want to see a good experience, and it's happening. So that is the greatest pleasure, really. And as still a fairly small business, to be involved in the breadth of activity, you know, whether it's designing a great tasting product or looking at the branding and the art and the creativity of packaging that product, and even the finances these days actually excite me to some extent. You know, it's all new learning and stimulating. Keeps our neurons firing, you know.
So surround yourself with people who maybe know the job better than maybe you do. Surround yourself with expertise and give them some autonomy. That's what you're saying. Definitely.
There are people out there who definitely can do things better than I can in many ways. I think my you know, fundamentally, as a business owner, I have an interest in maintaining a business with you know, with a certain ethos, and I have a vision for that. But in terms of making beer, packaging beer, having a good hospitality customer experience in the bar, there's people who have got real experience, and I you know, I absolutely you know, respect their part in the business.
Brilliant. Now, you've got a new lines of beers. I'm sure you've got new lines of beers coming out all the time, but you have one out now, coming out with a certain famous celebrity. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, that's our River Cottage collaboration. That's a really exciting project. Hugh of River Cottage, Hugh Funny Weeks saw, he has sought to bring together a group of producers, all fundamentally sharing a similar ethos. The banner for his for this range is food. Well, in fact, it's here. Food to inspire change. I'll show you. You can see that.
Yes.
So it's very much about the sort of things that we've been talking about, you know, things that are important to us. So there's a real synergy there. You know, we believe that we are producing food that is done differently. And so he sought to bring together a collection of producers under that banner. And of course, exciting for us to have that endorsement of somebody who's well known, and it introduces us to different markets that we might not otherwise do. But I suppose the biggest, again, satisfaction is being part of a family of like-minded people and businesses, all seeking that same end, and it is just part of that that journey.
What does the future hold? We've got a couple of questions left. You know, what does the future hold for you? And I'm assuming by seeing you for the last half an hour that you're an optimistic person. I'm assuming that you think, well, do you know what? The future's bright for your business.
Well, we can be reassured that people do seem to continue drinking beer, whatever adversity faces us, for a whole host of reasons. And primarily that it does connect people. That's it.
Yeah.
It is also part of our biology. You know, ever since we started growing grains, you know, even the motivation for growing those grains was probably to have enough surplus to make beer, not for food, because we had enough food. We wanted more, and it's quite likely it was for brewing beer. So it's been part of our being for a very long time. It is really competitive out there. You know, there's a whole range of stuff going on. There's never been a better time to be a drinker, or there was 6 months ago. There was never a better time to be a drinker. So I suppose our next step, the future, we have a brand that's grown up and has a really strong local loyal following. We want to expand our range beyond our borders here in the Midlands or in Gloucestershire. So the most exciting thing that's been happening for us is just reviewing that and looking at our brand and looking at how we raise up the hierarchy of our messaging, our organic and ethical foundations. So we've done a lot of work on that, and I won't say too much more, but watch this space over the next month. and we will see some exciting things. And we just want to continue that conversation with our customers and be part of world change.
And we'll be watching very, very closely. So last couple of questions. Where can people go to find out more about you, or they're not maybe from the area, they want to sample some of your beer or buy some of your beer? How can people get in touch?
Sure. Well, the easy answer to that is obviously our website. That's the first place to go. Again, keep watching it, because that's going to go through a change over the next month, and we're hoping to make that better and easier. We have various partners around the country, and you mentioned your good friend,
yes,
who has a business up there, who's acting as a distributor for ourselves up there, and that's Hops and Shots. So we do have partners around the country, so we will see more of our product going through those routes. I think it's brilliant. But the website is the place to go, because all answers are there.
And the website is Stroud Brewery.
.co.uk.
Awesome. Last question. What are you having for your lunch?
Well, today our bar's shut. Normally, I've become very lazy, and I just come and eat out of our own bar and cafe, and they do really amazing food. But yesterday, I made myself a really awesome dal that I almost ate all in one go. But I've got my leftover dal and rice.
Brilliant. I hugely appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for spending half an hour. You're a busy person. You've got a great business. Thanks so much for spending some time with us. And we will spread it around all of the groups across the Northwest. And hopefully we'll help you out to achieve the business of your dreams.
That's great. Thank you, Liam. Much
appreciated. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.